Welcome to readtheticker.com. If you go to the main site, click Information on FAQ and scroll down, you'll find the Richard Ney method. Today we're going to highlight some of the Richard Ney concepts. I'm going to reference this book as well. Now, Richard Ney wrote the Ney Report. This is the August the 3rd, 1990. And in here he talks about how the specialists are accumulating and distributing stock float and how they're manipulating a chart to release stock float from the public for their own benefit. Some highlights of this report is the index chart where it's got here with high volume. Specialists are responsible for the high volume. The public can't do that. They're responsible for either the low or high volume. So he wants to know what's going on here. They say the specialists are generating short positions. When the market comes down, the high volume is generating accumulation positions. Now, Mr. Ney understood the stock market the same way as in a retail store, the same way Richard Wyckoff understood it to be. That is, they are dealing in stock, float, and merchandise. So the logic is the same as for retail stores. So if you're a shop and you believe that winter is coming and it's summertime, you're going to start stocking up in umbrellas, and winter tide comes along, you sell the umbrellas when it's raining, so you make a margin. And if it's winter time, you get the feeling that summer's coming soon, so you start stocking up on summer hats and sun hats. So when the summer does arise, you start selling the summer hats as a profit. So all they're doing is buying float or buying inventory. Stock float is their inventory, and they buy positions up, and when price goes up and down, they will sell into the market when the demand is. Now, the story of David and Goliath is where David outsmarts Goliath, knocks him down and cuts his head off and becomes the successful combatant, which is great if you're a retail trader and you can do that every time. But in the stock market, unfortunately, Goliath tends to win every time. So Mr. Ney's concepts were to follow Goliath and work out what his footprints were in the market and surf them or piggyback is the word I should say, piggyback Goliath's actions in the market for profit. So his concept was, let's work out what the specialists are up to, understand the game, understand how they're tormenting the public, understand how they're using psychological warfare by using price against the public, and try and piggyback on their actions to make profit. Now, that's a bit more deeper thinking than what Richard Wyckoff has taught. Richard Wyckoff understands the same sort of thing by trying to look for where the cause and effect was, understanding high and low volume. Richard Ney throws in a bit more detail and a bit more specifics and shows how the specialists actually use price and price action to get the same result. So Richard Ney book, or Richard Ney concepts, studying Richard Ney is really an in-depth, further detail of Richard Wyckoff logic. Is definitely an addition to the study. Here's some high-level Richard Ney understandings. Richard Ney understood that price is used by the specialists to create volume. Price would be smashed up to attract selling. So therefore, if the price goes up, price is smashed up to attract demand. So if price goes up, it's reported in the media that new highs have been made. So people come in, rush to buy, and the specialists will be selling to it. If price is smashed down, busting stops and what have you, it would attract selling, whereas the specialists can use that volume to buy into it. So they can use price up and down on the chart to create volume to benefit their goals of accumulation or distribution. Price is used by the specialist to apply psychological warfare to the public, or i.e. the weak hands. The public is generally anybody who is not a specialist. They would create gaps in the chart, they would smash it up to get people excited, they would move price up very quickly through a support level or very quickly through a resistance level to catch the public unawares. Now they'll also use news and a benefit that suits them. If there's good news that comes out, they might smash price up, and you're thinking it's making you high, but they might generate short positions. They might use bad news to smash price down so they can accumulate more. And there's always that concept when you're watching TV where they say, "Oh, this is good. The chart is actually going up on bad news. That means that's got to be good." So you have to understand how news is used by the specialists to generate action. But ideally, it's the specialists do buy on bad news and sell on good news. Specialists, which are market makers or insiders, manipulate the chart to accumulate and distribute stock float for their and only their benefit. It's a business to them, just like a retailer. They're buying product to sell it in the future for a profit. They're manipulating the chart in any manner they see fit. They will use the news. They will create gaps in the chart. They will play and toy with support and resistance. They'll paint chart patterns that you think are going to do one thing or the other, just to frustrate the public, aka not specialists, in a manner that suits them and what have you. They have very deep accounts, so moving price up and down 10, 20% is nothing to them, where it might stop the public member out. So ideally, you really want to work out what the specialist is on about and to piggyback on his actions so you can profit. Now, Richard Ney's method is described in this book. The next few slides are going to show a few images taken out of the book. It's definitely worth a study. Here we have a chart, and on this chart here's some commentary here. And what he wants to highlight here, he says prices smashed up 10 points from 35 to 45. It breaks new highs into new ground. The public suddenly learned this stock was making new highs, 52 highs. It brings in the momentum buyers, what have you. And as it hits the, breaking through $40, breaking through $45, going up to 50, they all get excited. So, but really the specialist is pumping this up so they can sell into it. So for a specialist to sell, they need buyers. So the buyers are bought into it by getting price into new highs, smash price up. So they're selling into the public who come in late. And then obviously there's a bit of selling going on. And after the next bounce, might be a double top, they start generating their short positions and eventually the stock will fall. Now, I think for the modern day stock market, I'd encourage you to look at the Apple Inc. chart where price was smashed up dramatically and used to sell into, which eventually was sold down. That's an example of high prices for manipulation to sell into. Here's an example out of his book showing how the specialists use gapping down, to terrorize and create fear in the mind of those people holding a long position in this stock, General Motors. So the gap smashing down, busting stops, creating large losses in the account. The specialist is hoping you'll give up and sell. In the book, he talks about critical levels, where specialists will use large levels for accumulation and distribution. I think he's got marked here. I think that's 60. So it's 80. Up there's about 125, I think. And he shows how the specialists use large numbers to accumulate and distribute. They realise when price breaks a big number, it attracts media attention and how they want to use it. So, for example, if you're holding this stock and you're bullish on it, and all of a sudden you hear this particular stock smashing through 80, specialist hopes you're going to start selling that so they can accumulate. So it's like you hear about Dow smashing through 18,000. All of a sudden you better get in because it's going to 19,000, when in truth the specialists are smashing 18,000 to get the public to come in to buy so they can sell into it. Once again, Richard Ney focuses on how the specialists use these large, fat, critical levels and how they manipulate the public. Here's another example. He marks out how the big numbers have been used on the chart. Here's 20, that's 40, and there's 30. So he wants to know if people are holding, for example, a long list account and a specialist hangs around 30 for a bit and it breaks 30, the news or the newspapers will say, this stock price is breaking 30. You better sell, it's going to get scary or what have you. And obviously it does sell here, but they do the same at 20, so they start accumulating. So once again, they use the large numbers to get the news interest and hit the news of the day with a 52-week high or 52-week low, so they can get the public or other weak hands to react. Richard Ney likes his angles. Now he would use degrees. Now this is very similar to Gann angles. This chart is not set up for Gann angles, but if you can imagine if a chart was set up for Gann angles, you'd have 2 by 1 and 1 by 2s and 1 by 1 lines. Here he believes the chart where the specialists actually generate price actions to follow a degree of comfort. So here, for example, this chart has got 9 degrees in accumulation on the chart pattern. So you would draw a 9 degrees line there, would use this to follow consolidations or how well the specialist was controlling the chart. Here's another chart, Colgate, showing 16.5 degrees affinity. So he would find, oh, this is 16 degrees. He puts the low line there to the high up there, and he expects he had the support line here, and he would expect selling to come when it comes to the upper line. So whereas you and I might draw a trend line along here and a trend line along there and to see if that happen, he just takes the point from an angle which is only require 1 point. A trend line requires 2 points, and an angle only requires 1 point. Same for Gann angles. That's why Gann angles are very useful on a chart. Same logic here. So Richard Ney Richard Ney concepts actually support the use of Gann angles by just showing how you're using angles here. You can get quite complicated. Obviously, you've got angles for up and down motion on a chart. I think that's 20. What does it say there? Yeah, 60 degrees there, 30 degrees there. Yeah. Right. You can acquire some general knowledge of Richard Ney's concept via thescribe.com. There's a few PDFs in there. People made a few copies. I think to pay a few dollars. But it's worth scanning that. There are no charts or images in there to help you out. The book is very, very good on the charts to understand. But so the point about it is that you are in a David-Goliath battle. The point is learn how Goliath plays the game. Find the Goliath footsteps and piggyback on his actions. So I encourage you to learn about Richard Ney and learn how it helps the Richard Wyckoff logic. It is a very value-added concept to add to your thinking on this approach. Thanks for watching.